Good morning, Turin. Good morning, Torino Crowdfunding, everyone. I hope you have a splendid day in this conference. I hope you have fantastic discussions and a really enlightening day with lots of interesting speakers and panels. You can see the sun is not shining here in North Germany, Hamburg, but nevertheless I'm sitting outside, so you get the feel from how we are doing here. The last snow just went away 2 days ago. My name is Oliver Gajda. I'm the co-founder and the chairman of the European Crowdfunding Network. We are an international NGO registered in Brussels, Belgium. We've built the organization over the last year and a bit, and we are formally registered now since a few months. And we have now started to engage in earnest with European policymakers, not only in discussions and public work groups. We've done that already for the last year, but also in co-funding and joint research. I just want to give you a very short background on what is going on maybe on a European level. I'm sure you hear enough about what is going on in Italy, and I find it incredibly exciting that Italy will be the first European country to have crowdfunding specific legislation. And I think the Consort has done an excellent job in facilitating an open discourse and taking into account different opinions, and the solution they've come up, as far as I can understand it, I find very, very good. It might not be to everyone's taste, maybe not going far enough, but I think for first step and for first adjustment this is a really major achievement, and we shouldn't forget it all works within existing legislation that comes also out of Brussels, and therefore there are certain limitations that we have to take into account. And we have to understand the job of a regulator as well. What else is going on in Europe? We will see this April parliamentary action in Austria that will see a crowdfunding law or an adjustment to the banking regulation and the capital market regulation for crowdfunding. This is an initiative that was led by the Chambers of Commerce, and I was advising them on a board that they put together with international and local experts. We see discussions in the French policy area. There's a minister that will also put forward this spring a proposal about crowdfunding. We've seen that in Portugal parties are working on a crowdfunding legislation, and there has been parliamentary debate about that as well. The Dutch government has reached out and is doing market research and is contacting people in the market to understand better how they can facilitate crowdfunding in all, of course, its different forms. Though we shouldn't forget the legislation on a European level is mostly hindering to date, at least, the equity and debt crowdfunding. In other countries like Germany or the UK, the legislators or the regulators are fully aware of crowdfunding and talk to the platforms, but are not yet openly discussing any changes to the legislation. We've seen similar discussions like we have now about the laws and the possibilities in Eastern Europe and Poland, but nothing yet has formalized there. On European level, I think what is important to understand is there's a number of incumbent legislations that are then implemented and interpreted by the member states. Italy is one of them, that regulate existing ways of funding small businesses, especially the prospectus directive that limits the fundraising target issuer of shares so a company can do. Usually that limit is set by 100,000 euros, though the European Union allows to go up to 5 million euros. That is what will happen in Italy through the new legislation, and in some countries already now you can fundraise up to 2.5 million per year per issuer, for example in the Netherlands. There's other regulation as well that hinders the crowdfunding industry, that is all about e-money management, this is about electronic commerce, this is about fund management and managing assets on behalf of other people. This regulation is of course targeted on the investment vehicles that we see in hedge funds and private equity and also venture capital, and it is not necessarily adequate to crowdfunding, though it's the reality we have to deal with for now. The European institutions are highly interested in crowdfunding. I've been at work groups from the European Parliament, and there has been a report from the European Parliament on SME finance that promotes crowdfunding. The European Commission, the different Directorate Generals are also highly interested in crowdfunding, especially DG Connect, that is Neelie Kroes, the Vice President and Commissioner for the Digital Society, has put crowdfunding high on her agenda, and DG Enterprise as well, with Antonio Tajani being the Commissioner for this particular area, also stressed the importance of crowdfunding openly and publicly, and the Commission has asked Member States to take first steps to adjust existing interpretations of law to crowdfunding and maybe ease the market a bit. The financial regulator in Europe are the DG Internal Market. The Commissioner Michel Barnier so far has not spoken out publicly to crowdfunding, but has announced that in June there will be a working group. Again, we will be taking part in that and speak at that event with the European Commission on establishing if there is a need for regulatory changes across Europe. And we will then probably go through a political process if the Commission should find that there should be certain adjustments be made. It is not likely to happen within the next few years, though we might see if certain legislation is being adopted that could also be exempted for crowdfunding, that we see that already earlier. Otherwise the political process will probably take 3-5 years, maybe even 7, before we see a widespread pan-European exemption for crowdfunding. Just so for an information, the venture capital industry has been asking for a European passport or a harmonization of the market for many years, decades even, and it will be only this year that a passport allowing venture capital funds to operate across Europe under the same rules will be implemented. So we shouldn't expect too much. I think therefore that on the European level the real potential we see right now is of course in donations and reward-based crowdfunding, and we will see consumer loans and small business lending also improve. Here again it all depends on the cooperation with banks or those companies that hold banking licenses, and we will see equity crowdfunding across Europe being implemented and tested to a certain extent in different countries, but I don't think that we will see pan-European rollout of particular platforms offering investment opportunities across border. That will still take some time because the harmonization of the legislation will not happen that quickly. The more important it is that we see what happens in Italy, and that Italy is communicating about this, and that the other countries can learn about what is going on there. We shouldn't mistake that the Americans, even though they talk a lot about equity crowdfunding, so far they are not actually allowed to do it. This is just being implemented, and in Europe we have already several years of experience doing equity crowdfunding. In Germany some platforms have raised nearly 5 million euros over the last few years for their projects, and in Great Britain we also have seen quite successful platforms like in the Netherlands. Highly interesting developments I have seen are where alternative IPO and secondary markets for SMEs collaborate with equity crowdfunding platforms in order to provide exit channels for equity investments. So I think there we will also see much more developments. Similar platforms are being built in Germany, they already exist in France. My real hope is, and maybe this is coming out here today as well, we use the combination of course of different type of crowdfunding in the process of building a business, from pre-selling and reward into debt and into equity. Because in the end a business doesn't survive on equity, a business survives on customers and selling its product, and many businesses do not need equity investments or venture capital type of investments. They need customers to build their own success. And I hope that crowdfunding can provide real input on that level through reward-based and pre-sales-based crowdfunding campaigns for businesses, and then later, if needed, additional debt tranches or equity tranches. And I wish you a great day today. I hope there's a fruitful discussion, and I'm looking forward to hear the results from this conference to my contacts. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye bye.